Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast with your host, Gui Costin. The goal of this podcast is to give listeners a unique look into sales strategies from top industry executives. We introduce you to the heads of sales and heads of distribution who will help you understand the inner workings of the successful sales organizations from philosophy to execution. This podcast is essential for sales professionals seeking wisdom from the best in the field. If you're not familiar with Dakota and their Dakota Rainmaker content, please check out dakota.com to learn more about their services.
This episode is brought to you by Dakota Marketplace. Are you tired of constantly jumping between multiple databases and channels to find the right investment opportunities? Introducing Dakota Marketplace, the comprehensive institutional and intermediate database built by fundraisers for fundraisers. With Dakota Marketplace, you'll have access to all channels and asset classes in one place, saving you time and streamlining your fundraising process. Say goodbye to the frustration of searching through multiple databases, websites, Form ADVs, and say hello to a seamless and efficient fundraising experience. Sign up now and see the difference Dakota Marketplace can make for you. Visit dakota.com/Dakota-Marketplace today. What is up, everybody? It's Gui Costin, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rainmaker Podcast. I am joined by Jonathan Harari. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you, Gui.
Great to have you here. Mr. Harari is a managing director and global head of Investor Solutions Group. Prior to joining Crescent in 2023, Mr. Harari was an executive vice president at PIMCO, focused on business development across a wide range of clients and prospects, including pensions, endowments, foundations, and family offices. Prior to that, Mr. Harari was a vice president at Blackstone with a focus on hedge fund solutions. Mr. Harari received his MBA from Wharton and his BS from New York University. Now, just as we were kicking it off, I don't know if you're not on video and you're just watching, he has got an unbelievable resemblance to Sly Stallone, a Philadelphia fan, probably all-time favorite. So, which I said is a huge compliment. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gui.
We're so
Great
much
to be here.
We're so excited to dig in. We were just kind of getting into some cultural stuff. Before we jump in, could you just give us a little background? You grew up in Paris. Just start us kind of from the beginning. Walk us through kids and stuff like that, right through your career and up to what you're up to at Crescent right now.
Sure, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, grew up in Paris, had the luck and privilege of coming to the States to study. Actually, I studied at NYU. After that, spent a few years on the buy side doing long-short equity in Asia. Came back to the United States to study in this beautiful city of Philadelphia, where I did my MBA at Penn. And then moved back to New York City, where I met my wife of 14 years almost. 2 kids. And went to work for PIMCO, where I spent 11 years doing essentially sales, client service across institutional sales, across institutional channels, including pensions, endowments, foundations, etc. I had a stint at Blackstone in between. It was 2 journeys at PIMCO, where I had a fantastic time. And I've been at Crescent Capital for now a couple of years, leading global sales. And we are a private credit, public credit firm specialized in the non-investment grade space.
Gotcha. And right now, your client base is all institutional?
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's right.
Let's talk about your team so we can just get a sense of team. And I know we'll talk a little bit about, you mentioned your offsite. I want to dig into that a little bit because I love that, some of the topics that you were discussing. But tell us about your team so we can get sort of level set.
Sure. So one team, which is about 30 people, representing about essentially three functions: client service, so investor relations, business development, pure sales, and then product management. So where we have individuals specialized by product to work with the sales team and act essentially as PM substitutes during pitches.
Okay, so let's have a little fun with the word sales, that middle team. Pure sales, you said.
Pure sales.
Okay, you didn't say business development. You didn't say what, people like try to mask it. I believe in sales and the word sales and salesperson so much, right? I believe in cold outreach. That's how we built 2 businesses purely on cold outreach. Could you talk to us about what that means to you? Because clearly you've built this team the last couple of years, and now you're talking specifically about a 10-person sales team that's going out and selling the Crescent products.
So I love the word sales. to be clear, business development is a great term, but like you, I think there is a little bit of a tendency on the buy side sometimes to massage it for some reason, when sales is a great thing. Sales is everywhere.
Right.
Everybody's selling something, right? So we have a team that's more geographic oriented. So we have individuals in the United States deployed across the country. We have some in Europe, and then we're working with several placement agents partners as well. And so the strategy is the same across the board. It's targeting full coverage of our respective territory, 3 steps: origination.
What does that mean?
That means uncovering new opportunities, new dialogues with whether it's existing LPs on new ideas, new organizations that we've never talked to before.
Okay, good. So you got to love the selling something new to old, right? Existing customers selling something new, obviously easier because it's already open, it's warm.
Absolutely.
Hardest, new to new. Talk to us about that. And just your philosophy around how important that is to your business.
So if anyone that on my team that would listen to this podcast would not be surprised when I say the term new name, because they hear me say it all the time. Any new names this week? Because I'm always focused on who are we talking to that we're not talking before. So it could be through your network. You're talking to other clients. They tell you, oh, have you talked to X, Y, and Z? It's through your database, which we use extensively, literally every day, to find names in specific cities that we've never talked to before. Going to conferences around the world. We have a program that's over 25 conferences that are very targeted. So it's very deliberate. And there is actually a field that we just created in our CRM where when you fill out an activity, it says new name ? And so I get an alert that says new name with the activity summary.
Oh my, can we end the podcast right now? Because I can't tell you, I mean, we're obviously related in some way. So that, I love that. I always talk about the new, right? I mean, literally both on software and fundraising. We always talk about the new. Finding the new is everything. It's the lifeblood of any business. This is a peculiar business because a lot of people listen to this podcast, and I love them all, don't believe so much, and that should be the approach. I believe the best salespeople, the best distribution people are all about the new. Now, we're not going to say that comes at the cost of existing relationships and client service. I mean, we're not going to play the game of, do you want me entering notes into a database or raising money? It's like, no, we're going to do both because both are very important. My point on this is you're going to do both, but if you're not doing the new, eventually, right, the business dies. Yeah.
And that's what we talk about with my team all the time. And look, I think it's about empowering salespeople. They all have their region. It's their business. If you cover the Eastern region, the Midwest, the West, it's your business. You're the CEO of that business. So you don't want to lose a dime on the existing. That's a given. You want your clients happy. But then you don't want to miss a name. Not one. And when we're having a hard time reaching someone, we'll get together. We're like, okay, let's look at networks. Let's look at Dakota. Let's look at LinkedIn. We'll find a way, right? Sometimes it's, hey, maybe you're not getting a response because everybody is emailing during the week. You ever try the Saturday morning, right? And so
let's just unpack this a little bit because so when you look at how you're structured culturally, you're structured where you give one person sort of a CEO role within their region that they're covering. And then it's massively transparent against people that you do not have a relationship with, and you track that.
Absolutely.
Right. And then obviously you track when it happens, which is what you said, you get an alert when it's a new relationship, which I think is awesome. I mean, that's something everybody should have as part of, right? Because basically what you just want to be able to say is, A, I'm going to acknowledge the importance of that. And B, I want to make sure I know immediately. So really you can just call up and you can know, it's like, hey, we just got a new account. Then you'll end up probably talking to that salesperson. Or what a lot of people don't think about is you are managing up. And we'll get to that in a second. But you know how important that is. If you're seeing all the new come in, then you're having conversation with the partners or your partners or however that the structure is. You now have the ammo to be able to share with them. Hey, you can't believe this. We didn't know Abu Dhabi. Now we obviously you do. I'm just saying, right?
And that's very important because, look, our job in sales is very outcome visible. It's, did you raise the money or not? However, how you tell the journey to the money is super important, right? Because so much more time is spent. If you dissect the process in 3 phases: origination of opportunities, development of opportunities, closure of opportunities. So much more time is spent on origination and development. And if you don't tell that journey, the story along the way, not just when it happens, along the way, you're not doing right by your team.
Brilliant. So we just dropped the Dakota Way book yesterday, so it's available on Amazon. Only reason I'm saying that is the first thing of the core principle, number 1, is set expectations. And it's having a sales plan. And then having a clear reporting against the sales plan, which is essentially what you just said. But do you know a few people, because that's why, I was at dinner last night, guys, why'd you write the book? And immediately I wanted to go to and then I'm like, oh, we're just geek. No, you wrote the book because the law of 18 months, right? Salespeople last 18 months in this business for the exact reason that you just said. They don't set the expectations and they don't report against their plan to their boss. Thus, their boss, he or she really cares about is the end number.
Right.
Right. And what you're saying is, hey, no. We got to show you the time and energy it takes to get to that end number. And by the way, you're going to know it so well, right? You're not going to be able to come to us and blindside us and say, oh, right.
You should not have to wait the 18 months and for the numbers to know whether your salesperson was on the right track or not. That's on you, the sales leader. I can tell after 3 to 6 months if someone's on the right track. Because the way I do my process is, look, we sit down every month individually. We go through pipeline, plan for the region, meetings that have happened, like the top 3 or 5 opportunities in that region. In addition, we have weekly team meetings where everybody is sharing what they're doing, so it's full transparency. And then I believe in availability. What is availability? It's the most understated or underappreciated concept in our job. You got to be available as a sales leader. So if you're on the plane all the time, if you're out of the office all the time, you're not going to be with your team in the trenches. I'm available. As most people, when they call me, I pick up. When they need to meet with me, I'm available. And that changes everything, because now, instead of waiting for the next one-on-one, we talk every day. Hey, and that's why I get the alerts on real time. I find that getting things in real time makes you a lot closer to them, a lot closer to their situations. You're a lot more helpful to them, as opposed to, oh yeah, that situation that happened 2 weeks ago, remind me. Then we'll spend the whole call on reminding me, as opposed to, I get the alert, I can reply immediately. Here's my thought on this. And so it makes for a much better exchange.
So our core philosophy in our business, and it's in the book because I wanted to have this documented, is the core umbrella philosophy is focus on what matters most. So as I'm listening to you right there, just go through your philosophy. I mean, it's all focusing on, because you could break down each individual action that you were going through, and it's focused on what, at the end of the day, what matters most. Talk to me just about, because obviously you're rooted in that as a philosophy, meaning total focus on what matters and complete disregard for stuff that's irrelevant, right? And that's not easy.
No, that's the goal every day. I think there's a lot of noise and a lot of distraction. I could be in many places every day. There's always a reason to travel. So I'm very, very careful about picking my spots, because if I'm out of the office, people love, in our business, people love to say, what? I'm on the road. Why are you on the road? You're the head of the team. Are you empowering your people? Because they're on the road. But what are you doing to help you? I see my job as helping my team win, however I can.
Yeah. Give me some examples of, because I was talking about removing obstacles. Mm-hmm. Right. So you need to be available. I love that. I've never used that term. I call it open door policy. Like, anybody at the company can call me anytime with a question, anything. And I encourage it more often than I probably do get phone calls. But availability.
Urgency.
Huge. I love that word.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't sit on anything. So I'll give you an example. Product design, many members of my team meet with very complex LPs that are super sophisticated. They might want their own solution. They might want something we don't have. Maybe we do, but in different form. right? Sometimes it's working with the team to step beyond marketing products and getting into marketing capabilities, because capabilities can be packaged in different ways. The products are the flagship ways to package them, but then maybe we can think of other ways. That's why getting the emails, talking real time can be super helpful. Fee negotiations. Fees are a huge topic. How do we get creative on fees? We have to discuss in real time, because also one of my jobs is to advocate on their behalf to senior leadership to enable the opportunity to materialize.
I love it. So as we're back to this concept of focus that matters most, being available as a leader not always being on the road, which is great because that, when you're talking about developing talent, I mean, you do have to give up, because a lot of the joy in this job is the hunt than the kill. And it's almost the most depressing part is when you actually win the allocation, right? Because the journey and the process is so much fun, right? Of figuring it all out. But sometimes you have to take yourself out of that role, and then you have to become the leader. And the leader then is to remove obstacles, be there, be extremely responsive, right? And then they have to know, can you comment on the concept of knowing that you have their back?
Yes.
And how important that is to you?
So I've told everyone from day one, look, I'm not managing to a promotion. I'm a managing director. There's no title above managing director at Crescent. I am managing to generating results. The people I report to know that. They know that I will tell them what I think, the truth about whatever we're doing. We're about winning. There is no time to play games in terms of caring about what doesn't matter and managing my own career at the expense of helping my team win.
All right, earlier, before we started the podcast, we were discussing culture. Mm-hmm. And you're saying it's becoming more and more important in the world. And let's not talk about you worked 2 amazing firms before. That's not the point. What makes it harder to do what you're doing at different firms versus, obviously the team's giving you the freedom to set your culture the way it is. It's results-based. I have a great mentor, Dick Williams, just some of the best one-liners of all time in sales. He goes, results, not reasons. I mean, that has stuck with me since 2001. He taught me that results, not reasons, which is clearly what you're managing to do. I love what you said about you're managing to results, not your personal next step in your career.
That's right.
Right. But that means you're making it all about your team.
It's all about my team.
Right.
That's why, it was 2 days ago, one member of the team got a ticket for a very important strategy, very hard to sell. I talked to him, it was 10:30 at night here, I couldn't see it any other way. We didn't manage to reach each other earlier, but I wanted to talk to him on that day to say congratulations, right? Because I know how it feels. That's very important. It's all about them. And just to be clear, going back to what you said, sometimes we have to stop the hunt. I do make it a point to still hunt. Not because I'm obsessed with myself and my production, but because it makes me better when I talk to them.
Right.
If I say, hey, well, how come we're not raising that product? If I sound like one of those leaders that's so divorced from the action, right, that they're going to look at me like, he doesn't even know what it's like to pitch that product. No. I want them to know I know what it's like. And so I'm trying to be like Shaq and Kobe with every team member. Like I might originate,
right,
pass it on, and then they score.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm pretty good at originating new opportunities. Right. And so sometimes we just division of labor. And so I'll pass it on. And because go win that opportunity. If I can use some of my time to do that, I'll do it. Otherwise, more and more of my time is spent with each team member working on winning.
Coaching, focusing on results. It's all about them.
And enabling the winning through working on the design of products, solutions, fees, whatever else is needed to help them win.
One thing that's very important to me and most organizations, could you talk about your CRM? You touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And just what role that plays within the organization.
So when I joined, we were a little bit in a transition in terms of how we looked at sales and distribution. It was not playing a big role. And then when I joined, we overhauled that. I have on my team a manager that manages the investor relations team. She's a fantastic person. We work very closely together with an associate on the team to revamp the entire sales force. right? So, you can really customize Salesforce.
Yeah.
My associate worked with a consultant to really tailor it to how we looked at sales, right? So, like new name, like one thing that salespeople have a harder time doing because they're busy traveling, doing many things is, who haven't I talked to in 3 months? New alert every Monday. Who haven't you talked to in 3 months? I want to make Salesforce work for them.
There you go.
Automate everything as much as we can, right? But it's religious. We enter meeting notes. Everyone's getting all the notes on a weekly basis. So everybody's seeing every meeting. We also see everybody's calendar every week. We know where everybody is. And so if you have like one meeting and everybody has 10, you start wondering a few things, right?
Yeah.
So
that transparency right there
yeah,
is everything.
Everything.
Right? Because then the person's going to vote themselves off the ship if they don't, or off the island, if they don't do that. Or you're not going to, if everyone else has 10, you're going to make sure you have 10. You don't want to show up empty-handed at every sales meeting.
And really, it's to encourage dialogue between team members. Pick up the phone, ask your teammate how they're doing it.
Yeah. You know what that Dakotism is? Walk the 8 feet. Because most offices are 8 feet away. And I had an incident where the guy asked me about consultants, and there was a guy in 8 feet across the room in an office. I said, well, he's been covering consultants for 20 years. Just, you've been sitting next to him for a year. Go ask him.
Exactly.
I mean, isn't it crazy? An organization, this is why I think communication is so important. An organization has all these people doing all these things all day long. Okay? So you have all this value, all this knowledge being created in the past, in the present day, everything. And there aren't great ways to harness what other people know unless you do what you're saying or use Slack, that you force the issue, which is really just putting all those call notes in one place that are easily readable. And people love it on Slack because they can just scroll down, they can see all the stuff. Because then that Dakotism is tap into the collective knowledge of the group. Because that's the whole goal, right? That's why anytime an opportunity comes up, just like it sounds like exactly what you do, you want it right in the middle of the team immediately.
Exactly.
Right. So everyone can then be like, oh, I can help with this. Have you thought about this? Or I'm struggling with this. This is the, right.
That's that transparency and sharing that I think the buy side lacks compared to what used to be the sell side.
Yeah.
Right. Where people would, first of all, there were no real like offices. Everybody would be on the pod talking to clients, pitching, people would be listening. I mean, that's how I've learned some of that business. Right. And you look at buy side shops, you have pods, but then you have quiet rooms, and everybody goes into a quiet room when it's pitching time. So if you ask some of my past PIMCO colleagues, people knew me for staying on the desk, being loud, and pitching. And I loved doing it in public, right? Because then you hang up the phone and someone said, what did you say this? Oh, why did you say that? And we'd have conversations. But look, if you don't do that, sales becomes a very lonely job. Right? We talked about this. We had just had this offsite. And I said to them, first of all, we used two slides the whole time. And I said, look, I want this whole discussion today, there was a whole day, to be about selling. I don't want to talk about products because we do that all the time, or the firm or whatever. I want to talk about selling, what makes you uncomfortable, what makes you comfortable, and let's talk about it. That's not done enough. I think egos get in the way. And so it comes from the sales leader to do it.
What do you think makes salespeople most uncomfortable?
Having to admit that they have challenges and open up about the fact that, I'm having a hard time doing this. And I know you're not. And so revealing myself might not be the best move.
But if they have a leader that trusts them and that knows, hey, listen, this is a safe place, you can say whatever, and you're not going to be judged.
That's correct.
Right.
Everybody then becomes very comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. The way we did it for during the offsite is I love memes, right? So on Instagram, I follow a number of sales meme channels. It's unbelievable the stuff that gets created, right? They take movie scenes, put a caption on, tremendous. And so I saved a bunch of memes of very representative challenges that we face every day. Uh-huh. We played them and then we discussed each of them. And there's one specific one. I remember we opened the whole discussion with it. It's a Will Smith movie where he plays himself twice. There's two Will Smiths in the movie.
Okay.
And the one we see is a sniper, so he's looking for his target. And the caption is, when you're looking for someone to blame for missing your quota, your sales quota, and so when he finds his target, through the lens you see, it's Will Smith.
He's shooting himself.
He's shooting himself. And I thought that was amazing to open the conversation, because that's the thing about sales. It can be lonely if you don't open up. And it's all about discipline and self-accountability. And if we don't talk about it as a group, that we're all in this together, nobody here is going to hold himself accountable or herself accountable.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wow. I couldn't agree more. And that, can you just comment on back to one before we started on culture and why you think culture is more and more important today than ever?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you assume that you're doing it right in terms of compensation, right? If you are, one thing I do a lot is talk to recruiters, talk to industry peers on compensation. You have to understand what levels are. You can't live in the past. Markets move just like asset prices move. And so you have to keep up with that. Assuming that you're paying your people right. The other part is culture, because it can't just be about the money. If the day-to-day is awful, or if they don't have any career paths, they'll leave you. And I say they'll leave you, the manager. They'll leave the firm, but really they're leaving you. And
but that's the influence one individual can have, right? And as I said to you before, writing the next book called Be Kind, our leadership book, talks about how much time you spend with your family goes down over time because the kids get older and they move out and they're with their friends. But the amount of time you spend with your colleagues at work is, 5 to 8 hours a day, minimum, 5 days a week, right?
That's
maybe
right.
more, right? And so having a work environment that's very enjoyable, you feel challenged, you feel you're growing, but you actually really enjoy the people, it changes everything. And you talked about comp versus that. Could you just comment on that?
Yeah, look, I think a number of financial services firms in general think that comp is probably 80% of the equation. I would argue it's a huge comp. If you don't get comp right, we can't even talk about anything else.
Right.
Assuming you get it right, you have to get culture right. It's not just the day-to-day. It's about putting someone on a path. They're seeing themselves go somewhere, grow with the organization. And they know they're cared for. They know someone actually cares about their outcome, their day-to-day, and the journey. Again, we talked about how sales is all about the outcome. Well, no, you got to really care about people along the journey. And if you don't, they'll probably find someone who does.
Yeah, I love it. So speaking of that, when you think about a young person coming into this industry right out of college, what advice would you give them?
A couple of things. First, read a lot, right? I mean, content knowledge in our job today is real power, right? I think it's always been power, but today you walk into a meeting, whether it's on the institutional side or the wealth side, an RA, an IBD, anyone, they will respect you for knowing your stuff. So you got to understand what you're talking about. And I will say, observe what people are doing. So one of the great things that was really helpful for me for a number of years at PIMCO is I worked with a number of people, right? Because they pair you and you work in pairs, which is great. And I worked with people with such different styles, right? And you start, okay, this works here. I'm gonna take that. And you become a composite of these styles, but it's your own style, right? So I would say, watch people, emulate, and start having your own voice, which I think is the third point, is have your own voice. You have to have a voice. So it's great that you're learning, but over time, you have to have your own style. That's how, as a salesperson, if you have knowledge and your own voice, it's very powerful, because you go into meetings and you're hard-hitting. People remember what you say. And if they can remember 2 or 3 things you said, that really helps selling.
Yeah, and they can hopefully retell it right to their boss.
Exactly.
Because we're never ever selling to the end buyer, right?
Exactly.
It has to be told to someone else. Okay, so for you as a distribution leader, biggest challenge you're facing today?
Look, I think it's specific to our industry. The risk of not keeping up with innovation. Innovation goes very fast in our industry, faster than I think we even talk about. We talk about innovation in AI and tech and all of that. Innovation in our industry looks a little different, right? It could be a different vehicle. Look at BDCs, right? They were innovation. Today, if you're a firm and you don't have a BDC and you're trying to have a BDC for the first time, think about what it's going to take. And the rate of adoption can go very fast, right? And so why does that matter to me as a sales leader? If you fall behind in terms of innovation, you can't keep feeding the sales team good things to sell. And that is a recipe for bad outcomes. You want to be able to get your sales team excited about selling something that's really relevant. So you don't innovate or you don't keep up with innovation. You don't have to be the first mover, but you really have to be a fast follower. And if you're not, you're knocking on the door of irrelevance. Right. In our industry, it's a real risk.
So constant innovation.
Constant innovation, almost paranoia about missing out on something, so that you're always keeping your ears to the ground. The challenge in asset management is, unlike investment banking, every year you get revenue from the assets that are in the door. You don't start from zero.
Right.
And so it's an interesting contrast where you can be making a really nice annuity-like revenue, but you constantly have to ask yourself, what are we going to be 3 to 5 years from now? And that forces you to always keep up with the competition. What new products are coming out? What's the latest tax advantage way to deliver credit? Are we doing it? Because 3 to 5 years from now, your annuity could start declining if you don't take care of it, and you take care of it through innovation.
That's always been one of my core philosophies of this business. If you're a salesperson in this business, high recurring revenue, high margin business, you can be very successful and fat and lazy. Correct. And not keeping your eye on the ball. So I always said to everybody, if you're a one-person sales team, you have to act like a big distributor. You have to have processes in place that are just like a big distributor. So you have to have your sales force airtight. It has to run your business, even if you're a one-person sales shop. Why is that? You have to treat it like you're selling steel or lumber. 1% margin, 2% margin, right? They have everything tight, as you can imagine, right? All the sales processes and everything. So I couldn't agree more with that. What's one of my guiding sort of analogies is that I pretend we're selling steel and lumber and not investments, because I wanted to make sure that we were protected, right?
Yep.
Because if you actually learn something, because otherwise you can just get through this business kind of easily because it's so lucrative. And you just have a few relationships that works, but at the end of the day, what are you left with? You want to make sure you're building skills. So I want to close, usually I close with the biggest challenge, but you covered so much just by speaking earlier in the podcast about your leadership style. So just, if you had to characterize even one word, how would you characterize your leadership style?
Well, actually, I like what you said about your culture here.
Yeah.
You said it's a combination of hard charging and kindness. And I would say we're very close to that. I love that balance. You want to treat people well, be very respectful, but you want to set high standards. And I think that's what we've done on the team.
Jonathan, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated this conversation. This is something I'm going to go back and listen to, because as you started out and you walk through everything, it's unbelievable how when you create transparency, trust, and those just aren't words. I mean, those are things that really work. And then you focus on the outcomes you're looking for, and you make it all about your team. That's what you're all about. And it's pretty special. So congratulations.
Pleasure to be here.
That was great.
Thank you very much.
You got it. All right. Thanks so much for joining us on the latest edition of the Rainmaker Podcast. And we can't wait to see you on the next edition of the Rainmaker Podcast.
You can find this episode and others on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform. We are also available on YouTube if you prefer to watch while you listen. If you would like to check up on past episodes, check out our website, dakota.com. Finally, if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please be sure to like, follow, and share these episodes. We welcome all your feedback as well. Thank you for investing your time with Dakota.
Hey, thanks so much for joining Rainmaker Podcast. Hope you enjoyed the show, enjoyed the interview. I know I loved it. And hey, if you wake up in the morning and you raise money for an investment firm, you do cold outreach, whether you're a sales leader or salesperson, and you don't know about Dakota Marketplace, we would love to show it to you. It's world-class. It's used by over 880 investment firms and over 3,600 individual salespeople. To learn more, go to dakota.com and click on a free trial.